Brought to you by Atlassian, AI-powered collaboration software that makes the impossible possible.
I'm Yasmin Gagne.
I'm Josh Christensen.
And this is Most Innovative Companies. On today's episode, Fast Company's senior writer Mark Sullivan.
We're not going to be seeing OpenAI that's owned by Elon Musk anytime soon.
Caroline Spiegel, founder of audio-erotica app Quinn.
I was really just struck by how immersive it was. And I was like, wait, why isn't all erotic content like this?
And as always, keeping tabs.
I've been looking for a good conspiracy theory to believe in.
But first, here's the download. The news you need to know this week in the world of business and innovation.
As if running SpaceX, Tesla, X, and Doge weren't enough, Elon Musk made an unsolicited offer to buy the nonprofit that controls OpenAI for $97.4 billion. Sam Altman, in response, tweeted, quote, "No thank you, but we will buy Twitter for $9.74 billion if you want." Sassy Sam Altman. Musk was a co-founder of OpenAI before leaving the company in 2019. Since then, Altman and Musk have been openly feuding with each other and are currently fighting in court over Altman's plans to convert OpenAI from a nonprofit to a for-profit company. Is this a better beef than Kendrick and Drake, or a worse beef?
I don't know. I think we'll need to figure out what the death blow is. You know what I mean? They haven't had a not like us moment yet.
Sam Altman is next year's Super Bowl halftime performer.
The Justice Department has ordered the corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams be dropped by federal prosecutors. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove III justified the move by saying the indictment against Adams was hampering his ability to cooperate with the immigration crackdown ordered by President Trump and threatened to interfere with the June 2025 mayoral primary. Now, Danielle R. Sassoon, the Southern District of New York's interim U.S. attorney, has to decide whether to heed the order.
Hey listeners, Future Josh here. I'm breaking in because we have an update to this story. Shortly after we recorded this, as more and more news is going to break after we record, because such is the world in 2025, Danielle Sassoon decided to resign from her role as U.S. attorney rather than obey the Justice Department's order to drop the charges against Eric Adams. All right, back to the show. You know, they say the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Not sure. Unclear if that's true at this point.
Mayor Adams in this New York City primary. Man, poor Errol Lewis, who's going to have to moderate those debates. Crazy. The latest inflation numbers are in, and the results are a little unexpected. The Consumer Price Index rose 3% year over year in January, up from 2.9% the month before. This is moving in the wrong direction from the Fed's target of 2% and is likely to pause any plans for further interest rate cuts. The main driver of this tick-up in inflation were groceries, no surprise there, with bird flu continuing to cause egg shortages across the country, gas, and used cars.
President Trump signed orders this week to levy a 25% tariff on all imports of aluminum and steel.
You almost said aluminium going back to your London roots.
This is an escalation of tariffs placed on the aluminum and steel Trump set in 2018. All tariffs are expected to be imposed on March 12th, quote, without exceptions or exemptions, according to the president. The announcement immediately drew criticism from Canadian officials. Roughly a quarter of iron and steel imports in the U.S. come from Canada.
Intel stock is up close to 15% this week as of recording this. The chip maker lost 60% of its value last year, coinciding with the rise of competitor NVIDIA. What caused this rally? Well, in part, it was due to Vice President J.D. Vance. Remember that guy? He's our vice president now. My favorite thing about every new election is how quickly the vice president becomes so anonymous after the election.
It's true. Well, also, they were like, stop being embarrassing. we need to, yeah.
Well, Vice President J.D. Vance made remarks at the AI Action Summit in Paris on Tuesday. Vance said that the U.S. will safeguard American artificial intelligence and chip technologies from, quote, theft and misuse by its adversaries, making a thinly veiled reference to China.
And that's the news you need to know today. So, Josh, what are you doing this Valentine's Day?
I'm going to see the newest Broadway revival of Gypsy, starring Audra McDonald. Liz and I are going. Of course, that's my answer. So we're going to do a nice dinner, and then we're going to go see Gypsy. It's my wife's favorite musical. And yeah, it's going to be a lovely time. What about you? This was a very sweet thing. I get there's going to be something weird from you, I know.
No, me and Lou always order in Chinese food or Asian food of some kind.
That's sweet.
Just because, like, going out on Valentine's Day is horrible.
Yeah.
It's a prefix menu.
Yeah.
A lot of other couples around.
How did you say that?
Prefix?
Prefix?
How do you say it?
Prefix.
Yeah.
I'm an American.
That's fair. I thought you were going to say pricks fix, and I was like...
Pricks fix? Oh, no, definitely not pricks fix. Although I might start saying that, though. But no, that's nice, staying in on Valentine's Day. Liz and I usually don't do anything much on Valentine's Day because my birthday is like 2 weeks before it. And obviously, like, Christmas holidays are there. But the tickets to Gypsy were Liz's Christmas gift. And... those were the
and
dates
you were
I
like,
happened to get
you
them.
were like,
Twofer.
combined Christmas Valentine's Day.
You know.
Oldest trick in the book.
I'm glad Liz doesn't listen to this podcast to call me out on this.
She's like, you cheap bastard.
Clearly, we're not the target market for most of the fanfare that comes with Valentine's Day, which is tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the day this podcast comes out. And we'll have a quasi-Valentine's Day themed segment later in today's episode when we talk to the founder of Quinn, the audio-erotica app.
It has everything. Horny nights, horny boyfriends, horny... There's another horny in there, but
Don't forget horny nights.
I said horny.
That's a joke.
Oh. Yeah, we do talk a lot about horny nights. But first...
before we get to that.
You've got to eat your meal before you have your dessert. And that is why we're talking about Chinese startup DeepSeek, which dropped its own chatbot version of ChatGPT a couple of weeks ago. Then, of course, chaos ensued. NVIDIA, the best-performing S&P 500 stock for decades, suddenly dropped by 11%. In the midst of all this, OpenAI is seeking to raise up to $40 billion of new capital, with Japanese conglomerate SoftBank in talks to invest up to $25 billion into the new company. So there's a lot of activity in the AI space. We're trying to understand all of this. And there's more. Just this week, Elon Musk put up a $97.4 billion offer with the backing of a consortium of investors for the assets of OpenAI, which is already in the process of figuring out how to go from nonprofit to for-profit.
Obviously, you heard this in the newscast just a few minutes ago. We're going to get more into this.
And as we said, Altman rebuffed the offer. So we wanted to get into why DeepSeek became mainstream almost immediately, how the app stacks up against ChatGPT, and what the hell is going on at OpenAI. One note, we are recording this on February 11th, and who knows what will happen in the next couple days. So some of this information may already be out of date.
There's already 17 new versions of AI models that have caused major market ripples, I'm sure.
So to explain all this, we have invited senior writer Mark Sullivan, who can tell us what the hell is going on with DeepSeek and OpenAI. We started by asking him about Elon Musk's takeover bid. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to get into DeepSeek in a second, but first, I got to ask you what's going on between Elon Musk and Sam Altman.
Or at least the latest of what's going on.
Yeah, tell us what the latest is, listeners, so you know we're recording this on the 11th. Things may have changed.
Elon might own OpenAI.
Oh, my God. But just give us a lowdown. What's happened over the past couple days?
Yeah, well, Elon has been suing OpenAI over the past year. I think there have been at least 2 different lawsuits. He's upset that OpenAI has changed from a nonprofit to a for-profit company, and they've really become much more focused on making money and maybe a little less focused on AI safety. You know, Elon was one of the founders of OpenAI, but got out of it like in 2017 or something like that.
Well, didn't he get out because he couldn't take control of the nonprofit? Isn't that basically what that's what the Wall Street Journal said this morning?
Yeah, I think that's true. And that certainly tallies with the way he's done business throughout his career, including at PayPal, which he wanted to be called X way back then. So, so he's been suing OpenAI to remain a nonprofit or to sell. This time he wants to buy the nonprofit part of the business structure of OpenAI. It's not a very serious bid. I think it was something like $97 billion. But everybody knows that after OpenAI's next funding round with SoftBank, they're going to be a $300 billion company. So it's very possible that this is a stunt that they're doing to increase their leverage in the court. So we're not going to be seeing an OpenAI that's owned by Elon Musk anytime soon.
So let's get back to DeepSeek. We'll talk about sort of DeepSeek and OpenAI in a second. But 2 weeks ago, DeepSeek came out of, to me at least, nowhere. How did something so technical become this kind of mainstream media story? I mean, put this into context for us.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I was surprised too. I think the main reason that this little obscure Chinese company became such a big story is because of NVIDIA and that whole phenomenon and how many private investors have money sunk into NVIDIA and how much hope there's been for that stock. And what this little company did was showed that you need a lot less NVIDIA chips than everybody has been saying to power these really powerful AI models that are pretty much as good as anything that OpenAI has released. And so a lot of investors that were maybe don't know a lot about AI research were kind of saying, hey, what the hell? I mean, you guys have been giving this narrative and causing me to spend my money on more NVIDIA stock. And now I'm hearing that it really doesn't take as many of these precious chips that you're making to make this AI magic. That's why you had that big drop in the NVIDIA stock price.
Yeah, we should say that was a 17% drop, the biggest one-day loss in market capitalization ever for a single stock.
It was roughly 560 billion we have in the notes here. That's just in a flash, $560 billion gone.
Yeah. I haven't checked it today, but it's been kind of clawing its way back. But it's hard to dispel those fears among investors, like the suspicion that there's some kind of a bubble going on, and they're being sold a story that ultimately isn't going to support the stock price.
And what do you think this means for NVIDIA's stock price? I mean, going forward, do you think this company is going to recover, or do you think this is like a sort of opening death blow?
No, I don't think so. A lot of times there's sort of like 2 or 3 or 4 different trends happening all at once. And it may be true that there are more efficient ways to run AI models, but I don't think people totally appreciate, and I probably don't either, sort of how broad this change in the way we're doing business is going to be. And you have this sort of micro trend about the efficiency, but then you have this other larger trend where the sea is rising and raising all boats. And I think in the end, there's going to be a lot of money for NVIDIA and maybe even the Intels and AMDs of the world too. I mean, we badly need more competition in the market for AI chips. But no, I don't think this is going to be the beginning of the end for NVIDIA by any means. It's probably a good stock to buy.
You said earlier that the biggest thing we learned is that DeepSeek can train data and run on a lot less compute power than other existing models. Unpack that a little bit for us. How is it able to do that?
Yeah, really, it kind of gets down in the weeds pretty quickly, but it's, one of the simple examples that they did is there's this concept called mixture of experts, where when large language models work, they're predicting the next word and the next word and the next word in a way that kind of makes sense. And to do that, they have to use every little parameter in the neural network. That costs a lot of computing power because every one of those little parameters is like a complex mathematical equation that has to happen. What they did is mixture of experts. They said, well, let's segment off this neural network or this model, and we'll give this segment expertise in this certain issue or this concept. And so when the user comes up with a problem, they'll be this part of this router, is what they call it, that'll say, you know what, we're not going to have to run the whole neural network. We're going to just give it to these 2 different segments that specialize in this thing. And they're going to come up with the answer while the rest of the thing rests. And that saves a lot of compute power. This isn't a concept they invented, but they refined it and made it work a lot better.
Now, the price point here is really telling in terms of, I think, what did you say the number was, like $7 million it cost them to train this model?
Mm-hmm.
This comes at the same time, the success of DeepSeek, at the same time we're seeing the Stargate investment of up to $500 billion for AI infrastructure. Google has pledged $75 billion to invest in AI over the next several years. I guess not to put too fine a point on it, but do any of these companies feel stupid for spending so much money when they could have done it for so much cheaper?
That's not something that I've caught in my reporting, only because nobody's talking about it. There was a big thread on Blind, which is an app where people in tech companies anonymously post things. And they were saying that a lot of people at Meta were totally freaking out about this because Meta hadn't discovered these efficiencies. I don't know if there was the same freak out at OpenAI, but I'm sure that there were probably a lot of people looking around at each other searching for answers. It certainly has raised a lot of questions about the cost of training. It also put across this idea that these state-of-the-art large language models aren't really as special as we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
We have this small team of researchers in China, finding ways to massively make them more efficient. And so people are kind of saying, well, what's so special about these things anyway? And I think there was some gnashing of teeth in the AI community around here, and haven't heard really of people being fired officially. But yeah, it was an unsettling moment.
But none of this seems to have affected OpenAI's fundraising efforts. I'm curious, have you heard anything about that?
Oh, yeah. I don't think it has either. I was talking about this SoftBank thing. They're getting ready to invest another $40 billion is what the reporting is.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be more on the way. The other wrinkle here is that the way these models are working is changing. And I'll try to be as brief as possible here. But for a long time, these models got their intelligence from the pre-training that they did. They fed them just mountains of text from the internet, and that sort of allowed them to set the weights in their parameters, which they use to understand and create text. But more recently, the emphasis has been on something called inference, which is after the model has already been deployed and, after a user asks a question, it starts this process where it kind of gets more circumspect about its answers. It tries to find routes to solving different problems or answering different questions. So now the computing power is being applied to a different place. It's not being loaded onto the pre-training phase, but they're using lots and lots and lots more compute power and inference when it's sort of thinking about how to create an answer.
That makes sense. Now, Stargate came out of this new administration, and another thing that's come out of this new administration is new tariff policy. What impact do you think tariffs will have on this area? And I ask because DeepSeek is a Chinese company.
Well, you can't put a tariff on something that's free. DeepSeek open sourced those models.
We can try.
Yeah.
Well, that would be a new one.
But I'm seeing, reports suggest a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, including tech products. So right now it's free.
Yeah.
But if they move to some kind of profit model, what are we going to see?
I suppose, it depends on whether it's goods and services. Mostly this conversation happens around chips, tangible things you can hold in your hand. But I suppose it's possible that they could decide to do this. For instance, if a U.S. company wanted to connect to DeepSeek's API to link into their model that DeepSeek hosts in China, I guess it's possible to apply a tariff to the API costs that they pay. I don't know completely for sure if that would be unprecedented, but I'd never heard of that. The chips that NVIDIA is selling, these companies are manufactured in Taiwan at TSMC. I haven't really heard that as part of the conversation. They're Apple has the problem that their phones are assembled in China and then imported to the US, and a tariff is going to catch that potentially. But NVIDIA, is getting theirs from Taiwan. So that's kind of a different story. So it would be hard to imagine the Trump administration wanting to apply these tariffs after all the talking they've done about how important it is for U.S. companies to be dominant in AI technology around the world. So it's just hard to imagine him making it harder for U.S. companies to get what they need.
That makes sense. Something that I think you brought up briefly earlier is that DeepSeek is completely open sourced. Other major players like Anthropic, Meta, Google are relying on closed source AI. What impact do you think this will have? Do you think we're going to see more open source AI? What are we going to look forward to?
Well, I think that we're going to see more closed source AI. If we were still in this phase where models were totally reliant on their pre-training, I think that we would see a lot more closed source because people have kind of figured out pre-training to a large extent. But now the research emphasis is really on inference and finding better ways to do that, more efficient ways to do that, which DeepSeek did. But I just think there's a lot more work to go there. And I think when you see OpenAI's new models, you're going to see them say, this new model is 50% more intelligent and 50% more efficient on compute power during inference. So I just think there's a lot of innovation that's still going on there. And I imagine OpenAI's investors and attorneys are saying, oh, yes, you've got to keep that under lock and key. That's valuable and that's a competitive advantage. So I don't see OpenAI and Anthropic switching to open source anytime soon.
Do you think open source, an argument that I've heard is that it makes powerful models available to more people and potentially bad actors? Now, I think that's kind of funny because I don't necessarily trust Sam Altman more than I trust, other people. But
yeah,
is that part of the conversation?
Oh, yeah. And there may be some truth to that, especially as, I wish I had better vision into this safety discussion because I do think things are going to start getting pretty wild. I do think in the next couple of years, we're going to start to see artificial intelligence that scares us a little bit. And because we might start getting the sense that, we're talking to this entity that is clearly a lot more intelligent than we are. And with that, not only do you have to worry about these systems getting out of control and start operating on their own behalf, the more immediate thing is giving bad actors a more powerful tool to just go out and spread information or create a bioweapon or attack the electrical grid. So, yeah, I think there's some truth to what he's saying. And, that's why much of the AI world is gathered in Paris today to talk about this and how badly we need not only the governments of countries, but we need coalitions of countries around the world to start organizing controls around these things similar to the way that we organize controls around nuclear weapons and bioweapons and things like that.
What a cheery, cheery thought that is. Let's stick with the Paris AI Summit right now. What else are you hearing out of that?
I haven't heard a ton about it, and that's fairly common. A lot of these conferences, you look at conferences in the past, like Davos, and a lot of these discussions take place, and they're well-meaning, and they get some headlines, but nothing ever really ends up happening.
Yeah, I mean, they're not even, to be clear, they're not even that well-meaning. Davos gathered a bunch of billionaires to talk about how income inequality is a problem.
Yeah, that's true. Are they serious? Are they? It ranges from toothless to deeply unserious, I think. But I guess maybe the broader question is, what should a country like the U.S. be doing? What can we do to put safeguards here and address this safety issue?
Well, ideally, you would have a serious discussion with the best AI experts from around the world to start setting some parameters on what constitutes a dangerous system that can't be open sourced, that has to be locked down. You would have people starting to talk about binding rules about how these systems, the code for these systems is circulated around the world, what protections go in place. A person like David Sachs, who is supposed to be our AI czar, should be leading this conversation. I seriously doubt if he even cares that he is playing that kind of a role.
He's too busy pulling rug pulls on pump.fun or whatever meme stock people are doing now.
You're right. He seems a lot more interested in crypto than he does about any work on AI so far, other than keeping the government out of it and shutting down the FTC's antitrust efforts and things like that. I've heard people say that he is, in fact, a serious person. I after listening to his podcast, I have serious doubts about how serious he really is. Him and Jason Calacanis and those people.
The besties?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That might be his sole function. Being in that role is to make sure that no meaningful regulation happens. And so I don't know why he would care about the even harder task of getting world regulations to be realized. I can't see that happening. But those are the kinds of things that you would like to see happening. I haven't seen much to be hopeful about so far.
Now, DeepSeek surpassed ChatGPT as the most downloaded app in the US. And I guess right now is prediction time. So first of all, answer, what does that mean? Is that going to keep being a thing now? And second, what are we going to see in the next, I don't even know, week, 6 months?
Yeah,
like, what's
what
a realistic
time frame are we putting
timeline to
here?
ask you about?
Yeah.
Predictions for deep in the future. March.
Well, these apps at the top of these rankings are they're still kind of chatbots. They're kind of things that you talk to and maybe bounce ideas off of and get ideas from. You can get help writing papers or getting started writing papers. But I think what's going on is related to what I said about the inference phase and this idea of AI models kind of reasoning through things. You're probably going to see apps that are called agents more than chatbots. And, the hallmarks of an agent are autonomy, the ability to use systems outside itself, for instance, searching the web. Like last night, I was sitting here at my table watching OpenAI move the cursor around on my computer while it was doing a search. It was putting together this big plan for a vacation this summer in Montana. And I was just kind of watching it read over websites and kind of go through the steps. And it was making mistakes and it was coming back and starting over. And I think that's probably kind of what you're going to see is like these apps that instead of just talking to you, they're going to go out and do stuff. And then they're going to come back and say, look what I found. How does this look?
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Mark, thank you so much for giving us an overview on all this.
Yeah.
We'll be back with Mark for keeping tabs. But first, a quick break followed by a segment I hope my parents don't listen to. Josh and I interviewed Caroline Spiegel, the founder of audio-erotica app Quinn.
G'day, we're Atlassian. We make team collaboration software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, which power enterprise businesses around the world, including 83% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian, you'll unlock AI-powered teamwork, which means more time doing the work that matters. In fact, our customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. So you'll have more time to listen to podcasts. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. That's Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
In 2019, Caroline Spiegel founded Quinn, an audio-erotica startup she created in college. Created to give women an alternative to the standard visually dominated porn that is mostly consumed by men, Quinn audios are romantic novels condensed into 15 to 20-minute clips, which allows its 300,000 users to choose from a curated set of voices. Backed by TQ Ventures and Day One Ventures, Quinn raised $3.2 million in its seed round and has $5 million in annual recurring revenue. To kick things off, I wanted to know, when she was first starting out, how she convinced investors to take her idea seriously. Hey, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
When you were first starting out, how did you convince investors to take your idea and even the category seriously?
So to be honest, I didn't really. We got turned away so many times. I probably pitched, 40 or 50 investors trying to raise our first pre-seed, and most said no. We ended up raising at first just from some angels, and that we kind of used that to get a little bit of traction. And then once you have some traction, you have a little bit more to hang your hat on. And I think investors found it more compelling then.
We've seen romance as a category, both in audio and in book sales, grow a lot over the past few years. And I'm curious, what factors do you think contributed to that? And was there kind of a tipping point?
Yeah, it's a great question. Gosh, there's a lot of things that go into a kind of cultural shift like that. I feel like, so for one, like the pandemic, a lot of people cite as being something that really helped the romance industry because people maybe were not having as much physical connection and physical intimacy as they maybe did before the pandemic. I also think just generally the rise of self-publishing on Amazon. It used to be you would have to go to like HarperCollins or whatever and try and convince them to publish your novel. But now anyone can publish their work on Amazon, which has really fueled this boom in amazing new writers and particularly, female writers. And then I think generally just women having more economic power, purchasing power. It's like how we didn't have to have like workwear for women until they were in the workforce. Like we don't really have to have erotic content for women until we actually have liberated, empowered women who make their own money and so forth. So it all kind of goes together and has produced this awesome moment for female-first romance content.
How did you discover the category?
I discovered it actually on Reddit and Tumblr, where it's been a really big thing since, I want to say, like the early 2000s. And there are these massive user-generated communities, Gone Wild Audio, thousands of Tumblr blogs dedicated to erotic audio. There's also this old kind of Web 1.0 site called Literotica. And I just really fell in love with the genre. You guys familiar with Literotica? It's a tried and true.
The name is familiar, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Reddit makes total sense.
Oh, Reddit is all about like fan fiction, like erotic fan fiction in general. And there's a lot of, we actually did, our producer Avery produced this series on fandom, and there was a heavy dose of fan fiction sites and stuff like that. So we've covered it quite a lot on Fast Company Podcast.
Yeah, fanfiction and AO3 and Wattpad are also a big.
AO3, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Wattpad, I remember. We did a page on. Now, did you contribute to that content? Were you mostly a consumer?
I was definitely a consumer. I found the content and I was really just struck by how immersive it was. And I was like, wait, why isn't all, erotic content like this? It seems so obvious to me. It's so sort of imaginative and just the right amount of story. And it really feels like you're having an intimate moment with someone. Whereas I think traditional visual content can feel very voyeuristic and kind of forced and overly graphic. So I really just fell in love with the genre, and that kind of kicked off the Quinn journey.
Now, Quinn has user-generated content, and I'm curious about how you attract and then how you vet your content creators.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Quinn has had several different stages. So like in the earliest iteration of Quinn, it was all actually like Quinn produced, Quinn curated. There was no such thing as like the Quinn creator. And then eventually we started to realize like, oh, people actually really care about the voice actors and the personalities making this content. They kind of have these fandoms around their favorite creators. So that really led to our approach now, which is more kind of like a Spotify type situation, where you can kind of follow your favorite creators and people become kind of fans of their favorite creator. And our quality assurance process and creator vetting is pretty thorough. We do background checks. We make sure people have the best equipment, and we do kind of technical audits of creators. We connect them to script writers. And we really kind of try to support creators in this new genre who maybe some of them might have acting experience, but no audio experience. Some might have a ton of audio experience, but no acting experience. So we really find our talent everywhere and try to nurture them into audio erotica creators.
I was going to try saying consider this an audition in a sexy way, but I have no idea.
Pivoting out of that quickly. You also have some big name voice actors, especially on the platform. I think when we wrote about it when Quinn was on the Brands That Matter list this past December. Was that December that we had that come out?
Yep.
Yeah, it was this past December. Our article wrote about how Andrew Scott was the main character of one of your properties. And if anyone who doesn't know Andrew Scott, he's the hot priest from Fleabag.
And he plays a horny knight.
Plays a horny knight.
I think.
A phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Truly one of my favorite
great.
actors, and he sounds excellent on the what is that story called?
It's called The Queen's Guard.
It's called The Horny Knight.
It's called The Horny Knight.
Do we risk our sense of safety in order to have the explosive, exciting, beautiful feeling of falling in love again and risking your heart? It's a scary thing to do, but love is worth the risk. And the plot thickens. Grab your headphones and listen to The Queen's Guard, narrated by me, Andrew Scott, only on Quinn.
So how do you balance mixing like those sorts of big name, splashy name talent with your kind of bottom-up creator strategy?
Yeah, well, they're kind of designed to make a splash, like you say, like it's kind of, even I can see in this conversation how that kind of grabbed your attention, right? And the idea is the celebrity-driven content brings people onto Quinn, and then they sort of filter down into our other creator-driven content, our other stars who maybe don't have as much, notoriety, but they're amazing. And that's what people stick around for. Originals aren't really the bulk of our content at all. They're like less than 1% of our, 0.01% of our content, but they're a great way to introduce the genre to people who haven't experienced it before. It's very approachable. It's something you could talk about with your friends. And then once you get on Quinn, you can kind of explore more spicy content or content from creators you haven't heard before.
And how do creators get compensated? How does that work?
Yeah, it's based on performance and also the content itself. So like the frequency of uploads and the performance of their content on Quinn. So they're incentivized to kind of share their content with their followers, bring their followers and fans onto Quinn and grow.
You were talking earlier about basically creating this kind of content for, I suppose, like empowered or feminist women. I am curious how you approach that in the content. Like, what is your strategy around it? How do you think about issues like consent? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think just generally, obviously, like visual erotic content has not really been made from like the female gaze or the female perspective. And so a lot of our audios kind of naturally feature different things and follow different patterns. I feel like in traditional visual content, there's sort of a formula for what sex looks like. This happens, and this happens, and this happens. And I feel like the sex on Quinn is maybe a little more intuitive, experimental, playful, a lot of consent, definitely. We also have extremely clear tagging, and we take we go to great lengths to make sure our tagging is thorough and gives the listener a really good idea of what they're getting into, so they're not surprised by anything potentially triggering or off-putting. I think also like a lot of audios feature condoms or conversations or safe words or just check-ins. And you might think, oh, like, is that going to make it clinical and not hot? It's actually the exact opposite. People find those kinds of moments of intimacy and vulnerability extremely erotic, I found at least. So it's been really cool to see how the content is different on Quinn.
Nexus operations were engaged by a leading tech firm after a severe data breach by a skilled hacker referred to as the Collector. My mission was to recover the stolen data and, if possible, identify the Collector. They like to play games, so I had to move fast.
Some of us, changelings, are on a quest. A quest to bring joy into the lives of others. To tempt you mortals back to the magic that should be yours. As I've said before, joy comes in many forms.
Speaking of hot, AI. That was a terrible transition. So there.
Oh my God, you're laughing at yourself.
Not me laughing at my own joke. Honestly, it came to me about halfway through your answer, and all I was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna nail this joke."
You let the intrusive thoughts win.
Oh my
It's happened to me before.
Anyways. Setting aside that transition, there are a couple of other audio erotica platforms, including Bloom and Candy.ai, that are using AI tech. Is there already, or will there be a role for AI at Quinn? I know there's a lot of creators worried about the replacement of human work. And I think especially in audio, we've seen the technology kind of progress pretty far already.
And on the script level.
And on the script level, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And you called out some really important pieces of it. I think because the content on Quinn is so intimate and so vulnerable and so like almost, uniquely human, it's a very sensitive and tricky area with AI. And while definitely I see how AI is creeping into every part of our lives, our approach to AI, if any, will be completely like creator driven and in kind of conversation with creators. I think it's really important to remember that like they're really the backbone of our platform and all of their fans really like them. So we kind of take our cues from them. Some creators, I think, creators just have different opinions and approaches to AI, and vis-a-vis their audiences feel differently too. So we're definitely keeping an eye on it. I'm definitely hip to the whole character AI thing. I've seen some of the technology out of 11 Labs. It's really interesting. So we're on it, but really our priority is creators and their fans.
You have access, because a lot of Quinn content is shared on social media, or there's a lot of social media posts about Quinn. You have access to a lot of data when it comes to what users are responding to and what users are asking for. And I'm curious, tell us a little bit about the trends you're seeing.
Yeah, so we do like a Quinn Wrapped, kind of like a Spotify Wrapped. And our top categories always have M-Dom, which is like male in a dominant role, and boyfriend, which is like our most like sweet, loving kind of relationship style audios.
That's really cute, actually.
Oh, that's adorable.
So it's almost like, the two sides of our users are kind of present in that. And then this year, Professor also is one of our top categories.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's really funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of millennials who came up watching Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah.
So I get the whole Ezra sort of drama of it all.
Well, you've also seen, in books, at least, romantasy has been this exploding category. Has that translated over to your content as well?
Absolutely. And that's something I should have mentioned also about why audio is so great. It's like, imagine what it would take to create some sort of like fan fiction video series about Game of Thrones or whatever, right? But it's billions of dollars.
Game of Thrones arguably is that fan fiction series of itself.
I'm not convinced that Game of Thrones isn't just Lord of the Rings fan fiction, erotic fan fiction.
But basically the bottom line is that it's much cheaper and in some ways more effective to use audio for these sorts of scenarios because you can be anywhere you want. You can be in a medieval castle. You could be in the future in a spaceship. You could be really anywhere and anything that you want. And that's really one of my favorite parts of Quinn audios is just how immersive and imaginative they are.
Viral TikToks have helped fuel Quinn's whopping 440% year-over-year revenue growth, which is crazy. And part of your marketing strategy is courting influencers. What makes a good Quinn influencer? Like, are there characteristics you look for or metrics you pay attention to here?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so we have these hot pink headphones that we send to influencers.
Where did that idea come from?
Well, it's funny because on TikTok, right, like we were so jealous of these brands that could do taste tests of their product or show their product or unbox things. And we're like, oh, ours is an app. What do we do? So we wanted to make some sort of physical representation of the Quinn app. And headphones were obviously kind of a natural extension of that. And then we made them sort of fun and pink. And that's become a really nice thing to like send to influencers so they can have a natural way to bring up Quinn. And it's not just this kind of awkward ad read. And then they end up wearing them because they're really nice AirPods Max. So they wear them to the gym and they wear them out on walks and people stop them and talk to them about it. So it's been a nice kind of like universal, if you know, type thing.
To come back to Quinn Originals, which you mentioned earlier, you've launched Quinn Originals. You have celebrity-led shows. Is that the future of the business? Is that going to be more of the business? Will the business always be, mostly UGC? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I kind of think of the business as having two parts. Like, our product is really dedicated to this creator-driven content, sort of like an OnlyFans for women without the visuals and with audio and erotica instead. So that's like kind of the core of our business and what we're really focused on. But then you have to think about like the brand, the marketing, getting Quinn to more people. And that's where Quinn Originals really fit in, and sort of this Quinn Studios, higher production content with notable talent and so forth. So both pieces are really integral, and we're going to increase our output of Quinn Originals to 6 this upcoming year. We've more than doubled our budget, and we have some really exciting stories in the pipeline. So definitely going to keep those going, and also investing a lot in our creators on our platform.
How did you persuade Andrew Scott to do it? And do you have a dream celebrity reader?
I feel like this is right up Andrew Scott's alley. I don't think there had to be a lot of arm twisting.
It made so much sense.
It made so much sense, yeah.
I think really, actually, a lot of actors get it immediately, because when the role hits, like Hot Priest, for example, and you see the fan response that is so passionate and intense.
Rabid.
Yeah.
His character's name is not even Hot Priest, technically. It's just Priest. Everyone just described no Hot Priest.
Oh, he doesn't have a name. Okay.
No, he doesn't have a name like most people on the show.
Yeah.
But Phoebe Waller-Bridges was just like, he's just Priest in the script. I don't know where we got Hot Priest from, but we know where we got Hot Priest from.
These characters command this massive fan response. And so I think once you've had that experience, you know the power of romance, the power of love stories and erotic storytelling. So I think actors who have had that experience, it is a pretty straightforward value prop.
Gotcha. Yeah, Andrew Scott was like Hot Priest 2.0.
Yeah, absolutely. Horny night.
The second part of my question, which is, do you have a dream celebrity reader?
Oh, I have so many.
Give us a few. Give us a few.
Oscar Isaac, Pedro Pascal.
Oh, yeah. Obviously. Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
He's so hot, but I don't know if his voice is like...
He's got a pretty good voice, I think. Him as Oberon in Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Give us a couple more.
And then I think also, have you guys seen Aaron Pierre? He's in The Lion King, a lot of the Lion King promos right now. But
he's Mufasa in the new Lion King movie, right?
Yes, right. So anyway, he's great.
Hot lion.
Yeah, hot lion to follow the horny priest. The horny knight. I'm sorry.
The horny knight. Yeah.
That can be a horny priest too. I want to go back a little bit to Quinn Originals, because there was something I wanted to ask in the audio game, and a lot of audio fiction companies kind of popping up, not in the erotic space necessarily. The whole name of the game was franchisable IP. Is that something you're looking at in terms of partnering with a television company to turn one of these Quinn Originals? Is The Horny Night going to come to HBO Max at some point, is I guess what I'm asking.
We have talked to some people who are interested in turning Quinn Originals into TV shows and movies and stuff, but it's just not really our primary focus at the moment. I think if like the right thing lined up, it would be amazing to do that. It's also like, when you first read Harry Potter and you have this whole image of what it's like in your mind, and then you see the movie and it's like, that's not what Diagon Alley looks like.
Yeah.
I don't want people to have that experience, but who knows?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I think to end the show, we want some recommendations from you.
Yeah.
And maybe this is too personal a question, but you are the CEO of Quinn, so I feel okay asking it.
Ask away.
Give us the hits.
Yes.
Okay, so our most popular creator is named Naudio, Naudio.
That's a great name. I'm sorry. Naudio is such a good name.
It's like naughty and audio.
For an audio-erotica platform, that is the perfect name.
So I'd recommend his audios, and his most popular, I think, is Getting Even.
You think you're so funny teasing me all day, don't you? Wipe that smile off your face. Oh, that's it. I can't take it anymore.
Wait. What is Getting Even about?
So it's about...
No, too inappropriate.
It's about a couple, and the female partner, the girlfriend, has been sending him pictures and teasing him all day. And he finally gets back home from work after being teased all day via texts with her, and he wants to get even.
Word.
Word.
Sorry, what's the next one?
So Cameron Kingston is a British voice actor on Quinn.
I want to make you delirious with the things I do to you. Are you ready for me? Now get on your f***ing knees.
And then we have some amazing women too. Sarah Gibson is a great female creator. And she has a great roommates series called Prying Eyes about two female roommates. One thing leads to another.
There's just something about when our skin is close. I can feel that heat between us. And it's not just a physical heat. It's this intense chemistry that we have that I've never had with anybody else before.
Sorry, I feel so Muslim right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you're... This is really testing your
white knuckling it through this
your upbringing. You're Muslim and you went to posh British girls' school.
You're in good hands with those, Rex.
No. What does Cavern Kingston read? What a name.
So he is actually this really popular voice actor, podcaster who has a massive presence on TikTok. He makes a lot of boyfriend, simple kind of straightforward romance content, but he also did a series inspired by A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is a really popular...
Oh, people are obsessed. The fairy porn.
Yeah, fairy
books.
porn. Exactly.
Yeah, fairy porn.
Yeah.
Word.
So highly recommend.
I like that a lot. Do they write their own scripts and then perform them? Do they work with a scriptwriter? How does that work?
Yeah, they can't read directly from books. And obviously anything that's fan fiction-esque is very loosely inspired and doesn't use any actual IP from that stuff. But I would say it's kind of a 50-50 split. Half of our creators write their own scripts and half work with scriptwriters. So it kind of depends on their vibe. Some people are very set on writing their own material, and other people have longtime collaborators that write their scripts.
Okay, we are back with Mark, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each one of us shares a story, a trend, or a piece of pop culture we're following right now. And Mark, since you're our guest, what are you keeping tabs on?
This isn't terribly original, but I've been keeping tabs on conspiracy theories about the ownership of TikTok on TikTok. I mean, people posting videos.
I've seen some of this.
You know what I'm talking about? People get on.
Yeah, I've been following.
So people come on and they say, I've unfriended Meta on TikTok 20 times, and then I go back and check, and I'm friended with them again, or I'm following them again. And that tells me that Meta is about ready to buy TikTok. And then I saw somebody was saying the same thing about they couldn't unfollow Musk on TikTok. There's all these people, thousands of people looking for signs about who is about to buy TikTok. And I've kind of been following that and being entertained.
Now, are you a conspiracy theorist? Are you...
Do you see the number 23 everywhere?
Yeah. Great reference.
I've been looking for a good conspiracy theory to believe in, but I haven't really found one that fits for me yet, but open to it.
You did talk about UFOs the last time you were on the show.
You did talk about aliens. I feel like you're very susceptible to this kind of thinking, and I like that.
Primed for it, but skeptical at the same time. I love it.
My therapist says the same thing, so...
Josh, what are you keeping tabs on?
I know it's Thursday, but I can't get over the Super Bowl and just how incredibly boring the game was in terms of a competitive level. It was a blowout. The Eagles won over the Chiefs, but I enjoyed every second of it. This is going to become real petty real quick. So my dad was a Patriots fan his whole life. And after Tom Brady left, he just decided to become a Chiefs fan for some reason.
So he only likes the winning teams?
He only likes the winning teams because also when he was a kid and in the 90s, he was a Dallas Cowboys fan.
That's fucked
up.
up.
So in the 70s and 90s. And my dad
He's like the most fair weather fan ever.
He's the most fair weather fan ever. And he was gloating so hard about the Chiefs and just being insufferable about it. So when I saw the Chiefs get just pounded into the dirt.
You were like, I hate my dad.
I love my dad.
Kidding.
I love you. He doesn't listen to the show. But it's football. It doesn't really matter. He was fine because, again, he's a fair weather fan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I forgot the meme, but it's like you look at someone and they're wearing one thing and then it cuts away and then they look back and they're wearing something completely different.
Yeah. That's funny.
my dad with the Chiefs. I'm sure it's like it cuts back to my dad and he's wearing an Eagles jersey. And he's like, I don't know, Jalen Hurts Nation over here.
That's so good.
Anyways, it was really enjoyable. What was more enjoyable was just rubbing my dad's nose in it the whole weekend along with my siblings. So that's what I was keeping tabs on. Boring Super Bowl, but good for me personally. Yaz, what are you keeping tabs on?
So this is extremely random, but I called somebody to I was being bitchy, and I called someone an Eddie Haskell recently. Do you know what that means?
An Eddie Haskell? Why is that so familiar to me?
He's the character in Leave It to Beaver who's like a huge piece of shit. He's always like, I think you look lovely, Mrs. Blah, blah, blah. And then he's like a dick to everybody behind the adults' backs.
Yes. That is such a dorky reference.
Well, so then I was like, because this person I was talking to was like, who the fuck is Eddie Haskell? And I went
they should ask.
So I went on the Wikipedia page for Eddie Haskell. And then I was like, what happened to this actor? Turns out he got typecast afterwards and became an LAPD officer for a while. But I then found one of the randomest urban legends I've ever heard in my entire life, which is that in the early 1970s, a story was widely reported that the actor who played Eddie Haskell had become rock star Alice Cooper. What? And apparently Alice Cooper could not get away from this. Like, everyone believed it. Cooper had a T-shirt that got made saying, "No, I am not Eddie Haskell," which then made everybody believe it some more.
Mark, I think we found a conspiracy theory for
incredible conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
We all need something to believe in.
Just an incredible, weird conspiracy theory that
That's so weird.
I'm
I
so
love
obsessed with.
about
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Anyway, this is my Wikipedia hole. I think Eddie Haskell's a really solid insult.
It's a very specific reference that holds a lot of. Really, it's about managing up.
You're looking very fetching in that dress today, Mrs. Cleaver.
Yeah. There's someone here who says shit like that all the time. And I can't stand it. Anyway, that's it for Most Innovative Companies. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Be sure to check out the AI Decoded newsletter. It's Mark's newsletter every week on fastcompany.com.
And it's on LinkedIn, right?
Sure is.
And that's it for Most Innovative Companies. Mark, thank you for joining us. Our show is produced by Avery Miles and Blake Odom with help from Sam Gebauer and Hawa Atori. Editing by Matt Toder, mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres, and our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we will see you next week.